household waste charging scheme expected to be launched in late 2020. The Express Rail Link's West Kowloon station hit by a ticketing system failure this morning.
Hello and a very good evening. The public may soon have to shell out more to have their household garbage disposed of. That's as the government plans to implement its charging scheme for household trash as soon as the later part of 2020. Haley Joe has our top story tonight.
The government is pressing ahead with its household waste charging scheme. It will table a bill at the Legislative Council on November 14th and implement its charging scheme in late 2020, the earliest. This means the public will soon require to purchase designated trash bags or risk being fined.
Public education and publicity is the priority. And then that will be backed up by the enforcement. The minimum fixed penalty is $1,500. It's equivalent to a few years of a typical family's waste charging.
Under the government's plan, the public will have 9 sizes of bags to choose from. The per liter charge for the bags will be set at 11 cents, which means the price of each bag will range from 30 cents to $11. An average household is expected to spend $33 to $51 per month to throw out the trash. Household waste that are too large for the bags should bear an oversized waste label, which costs $11 each. Garbage taken directly to landfills by private waste collectors will be charged at $365 or $395 per ton, depending on the dumping location. Comprehensive Social Security Assistance recipients will receive an extra $10 per month to cope with the new fee. Waste collectors will reject all trash not properly disposed of. For effective implementation of the new rules, the government also plans to develop a mobile application for the public to report non-compliance cases. A Green Group welcomes the plan.
I think that's a very key to change Hong Kong's consumerism or materialism. After we have this legislation, I will think there's a big cultural change to Hong Kong people's style, and it is a very good change and necessary change for Hong Kong as well as for our world.
The charging scheme will not become effective until 12 to 18 months after the passage of the bill. This will give the public time to prepare for the new system. Haley Joe, TVB News.
The standby signal number 1 is now in force as severe tropical storm U2 nears Hong Kong. However, the observatory stressed the chance of issuing a higher signal before midnight tonight is not high.
U2 is expected to reorganize gradually tonight and also tomorrow, and it will also turn to the north gradually. According to the present forecast track, the chance of local winds becoming generally strong tonight is relatively low. Chance of issuing the strong winds signal number 3 before midnight tonight is not high.
The observatory issued the standby signal number 1 early this morning. Stronger winds are expected tomorrow and on Friday. Starting this morning, authorities have limited the speed of shuttle buses going through Hong Kong, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, to 60 kilometers per hour. More details behind the MTR's Hong Kong station construction scandal emerged today. The managing director of China Technology says there are some 30,000 defective connections in the station's platform, while denying he blew the whistle over late payments. Kana Chu reports.
The hearing for the commission tasked with looking into shoddy works at the Hong Kong station construction site continued today at the Tsuen Wan Law Courts building. Jason Pu, managing director of one of the project's subcontractors, China Technology, continued to give his statements. The whistleblower said since October 2016, China Technology and Leighton Asia have disagreed over various engineering and construction issues. During an inspection of the Hong Kong construction site, China Technology took tens of thousands of photos. Many of the photos show the shortened steel bars as well as piles of cut rebars left lying on the ground. Further, in January last year, Poon liaised with Leighton and reached a commercial agreement in September. That was when Poon agreed to delete a bunch of the photos, as Leighton promised to carry out remedial works. The Commission's chairman, Michael Hartman, then questioned whether the deletion of the photos were done in the best interests of the public, as they could provide important evidence in the future, should, for example, a derailing occur. Poon said he was willing to delete the photos because he thought the remedial works would be carried out as promised. He noted no matter how many photos he had in possession, the truth would prevail within the station's structure. Poon estimates there are around 30,000 faulty connections in the project, with roughly 5% of them being defective couplers. He maintained that he has not yet disclosed all the problems he observed due to the confidentiality requirements. Meanwhile, Poon denied suggestions he made the allegations to punish Leighton Asia for overdue payments to China Technology. Jason Poon is now given 2.5 weeks to review his remaining photographs and look for bar cutting as well as other compelling structural issues. The evidence will be submitted to the panel for further investigation. Kana Chu, TVB News.
Meanwhile, the ticketing system at the Express Rail Link's West Kowloon station was down for nearly 2 hours this morning. Ticket sales had to be carried out manually. The MTR Corporation said the hiccup was due to problems with data transfers between the local ticketing system and that on the mainland. Caleb Long has more details.
Because of a problem with the ticketing system, only tickets for trains departing within 2 hours are currently available for purchase or collection at the ticketing counter. Thank you for your understanding.
That's the message repeatedly announced at West Kowloon Station this morning as passengers lined up for train tickets at the counters. The ticketing system failure began at 8:25 a.m. and lasted nearly 2 hours. Most of the ticket machines were out of service, while handwritten tickets were sold by counter staff. Those who ordered tickets online were allowed to board the train after showing their proof of purchase. Some passengers complained about the confusing arrangements, and others were simply displeased with the situation.
I feel quite disappointed because I think the automatic machine should be working because it's just only 1 month.
Mr. Chen, however, praised the MTR Corporation for opening more ticket counters during the system failure. The rail operator later explained what had happened.
In this morning, the network connecting our ticketing system with the mainland ticketing system, the transfer of data is not so smooth this morning, and that affects the operation of the Hong Kong ticketing system.
The ticketing system was restored at 10:15 a.m. Mainland high-speed train tickets sold by China Railway were not affected by today's malfunction as the two systems operate separately. Caleb Bloom, TVB News.
Overseas now, Indonesian search and rescue workers believe they've found the fuselage of a Lion Air passenger jet that crashed with 189 people on board on Monday. They're also trying to confirm the origin of an underwater ping signal, which should help crash investigators find the flight data recorders. Air traffic control lost touch with Lion Air flight JT610 13 minutes after the Boeing 737 MAX 8 took off from Jakarta on its way to the tin mining town of Pangkal Pinang. There were no survivors. A preliminary accident investigation report should be out within a month, and the final report could take up to 6 months to prepare.
U.S. President Donald Trump visited the same synagogue in Pittsburgh where a gunman killed 11 people last Saturday. Nearby, thousands protested Trump's presence in the city, demanding that he denounce white nationalism. Alan Booknia reports.
Shrugging off assertions from Pittsburgh's mayor that the visit is ill-timed, Trump was accompanied by First Lady Melania, his daughter Ivanka, and her husband Jared Kushner, who are both Jewish. Congressional leaders from both parties declined to join. Trump and family were welcomed by Rabbi Jeffrey Myers, who led them into the Tree of Life Temple. They emerged about 18 minutes later and placed tributes at memorials outside. Trump made no public remarks. Nearby, thousands marched through the streets, protesting Trump's presence in the city.
We'd like to ask President Trump to please stop with all of the hate speech and please try to bring our country together. The schisms appear to be almost insurmountable.
I'm very against Trump and his policies and his followers. And this is not a time for him to come to Pittsburgh, to this neighborhood in particular.
But this Trump supporter thinks the president is in a no-win situation.
If he didn't come, they would also have something to say. He didn't have the decency to come.
Meanwhile, funerals were held for some of the victims of Saturday's shooting.
It's very kind of him to come, but how helpful it'll be in the midst of all of this chaos of mourning, I don't know.
I think the president's visit was very much a distraction. I think it detracts from our ability as a neighborhood to go and mourn.
The emotional dissonant scene comes after a week of threats of politically motivated violence and hate killings as the country hurtles towards contentious midterm elections next Tuesday. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
One of Boston's most notorious mobsters was brutally beaten to death at a federal prison in West Virginia. That came just one day after the 89-year-old was transferred to the high-security facility. As Jeff Tang reports, James Bulger's crime-ridden life was defined by gambling, extortion, drug dealing, and murder.
The 89-year-old was found beaten to death in his cell a day after he was transferred to the high-security West Virginia prison in a wheelchair. Prison staff went looking for Bulger on Tuesday after he failed to show up for breakfast, but discovered his body wrapped in a sheet. He was said to have been beaten so badly that blood came out of his ears. The FBI has opened a homicide investigation after prison surveillance footage showed two men entering Bulger's cell. Born in September 1929, Bulger grew up in South Boston and was called Whitey because of his light blonde hair, a nickname he was said to have detested. After serving time for assault and armed robbery early in his criminal career, Bulger eventually fell in with the Irish mob and worked his way through the ranks as a bookie and loan shark. He became a leading figure in Boston's underworld by the early 1970s, with his Winter Hill gang making millions of dollars from loan sharking, gambling, extortion, drug dealing and murder over the next 2 decades. Bulger managed to avoid jail time by killing potential witnesses and providing information about a rival gang to a rogue FBI agent, John Connolly, who was also his childhood friend. When Connolly retired from the FBI, Bulger had spent 16 years living as a fugitive from 1995. He was finally captured in Santa Monica in June 2011, when a former Icelandic beauty queen tipped off authorities. At the time of his death, Bulger was serving 2 consecutive life sentences plus 5 years after being convicted of 11 murders, among other charges, in August 2013. His violent nature was highlighted in the trial when prosecutors pointed out he had strangled 2 women with his bare hands and tortured a man for hours before shooting him in the head with a machine gun. The notorious mobster was portrayed by Johnny Depp in the 2015 film Black Mass and also served as the inspiration for the crime boss portrayed by Jack Nicholson in the 2006 movie The Departed. Jeff Tang, TVB News.
And still ahead on the news tonight. Private home prices in the city fall for the 2nd consecutive month. Pakistan's top court acquits a Christian woman who was sentenced to death for blasphemy against Islam.
K-pop 嘅，我乜獎都攞過，淨係爭個新人獎進軍韓國攞埋就好啦。跟我嚟呢度，新客戶做定期活期都攞到里數獎賞，新人獎得主 Sammy。我仲係新人，
放心，攞獎無分新舊，無論渣打新舊客戶用港幣100萬新資金開定期存款，一次過賺26萬里數。
想嚟活啲咧？
開埋活期存款，個月賺15000里數。
定期活期都賺里數，渣打新舊客戶做得到。
一心做好，始終如一。
welcome back. The city saw falling home prices in the private sector in September, and that's the second month in a row. Our Sharon Tang has more details.
Private home prices in Hong Kong have plummeted for 2 months in a row, and in September, a bigger decline than in the previous month. According to the Rating and Valuation Department, the price index for private domestic flats last month was at 388.8, marking a 4-month low and a 1.4% monthly decrease. Still, the figure is nearly 14% higher than that from the same period last year. Prices have plunged for residential units of all sizes. Units that are between 753 and 1,075 square feet in area have experienced the biggest drop, with a monthly decline of about 1.8%. Willie Liu leads one of the biggest real estate agencies in town. He estimates that flat prices will continue to drop by at least 2% before the year ends. He says the city's housing market has changed since the interest rate hike in September, and that trade tensions between China and the United States have worsened. Liu thinks the tensions may ease out after the U.S. midterm elections. Meanwhile, rents for private domestic flats have gone up for 8 straight months, with the index reaching 197.8, representing a 0.5% monthly increase. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Overseas again, Pakistan's top court today acquitted a Christian woman who was sentenced to death on blasphemy charges back in 2010. The charges against Asia Bibi go back to a hot day in 2009 when she got water for her and her fellow farm workers. 2 Muslim women refused to drink from a container used by a Christian. A few days later, a mob accused her of blasphemy for making anti-Muslim remarks after neighbours objected to her drinking water from a Muslim's glass. The mother of 4 was convicted and sentenced to death. Bibi's acquittal and release by Pakistan's top court has stirred fears of mob violence in Islamabad. Combating alleged blasphemy has become a rallying cry for hardline Islamists.
The death toll from heavy storms lashing Italy has risen to 11. Venice's famed St. Mark's Basilica suffered one of its worst floods ever. In the city of Water, tourists were barred from St. Mark's Square on Monday. That came after water levels peaked at 156 centimeters, covering 3/4 of the city for the first time in a decade. Italian officials said many of the deaths in the country were caused by toppling trees. The victims also included a woman who was buried by a landslide near Trento in the north and a man who was slammed against rocks while surfing. Other deaths came from regions as far south as Naples, Liguria, and Lazio. The extreme weather was not limited to Italy. Austria and Slovenia were also pounded by heavy rain over the last few days. Russia's only aircraft carrier was damaged in a dock accident that left 1 person missing and 4 injured. A floating dock sank early yesterday morning in Murmansk, dropping a crane on the deck of the aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov. The 70-ton crane left a hole of 20 square meters, but according to an official, that did not damage any of the ship's vital systems. The accident happened as the ship was leaving the dock following repairs. The official said the incident won't lead to a significant extension of the carrier's refurbishment. Following the repairs, the carrier is to be fitted with modern control systems and new weapons. Launched in 1985, the Admiral Kuznetsov has been plagued with technical problems. And that's our news.